Oh, that sounds so good. Hey everyone, Piano Man Chuck here, and I'm here today with the Yamaha MX88 keyboard. It's a digital piano, it's a stage piano, it's a synth, it's many things. It's multifaceted. Now, the MX series is not new. There has been an MX49 and an MX61. This particular model, the MX88, is new, and the numbers indicate how many keys there are. 49 and 61 indicate 49 and 61 keys respectively. And 88, of course, 88 full-size piano keys. They're weighted and they are graded. So basically, just like on a concert grand piano or any other acoustic piano, you need a little bit more pressure to play it on the left and a little bit less on the right. So they're graded. They go from heavier to lighter as you go from left to right or from bass to treble. So that's really cool. It's an entry level stage piano. Let's call it a stage piano because it's so many things, but we'll just settle for stage piano because basically, if you're in a band or even if you're in the studio, you can use this for just about anything. It's got over 1,100 different instruments or sounds to it. Unbelievable. And when you have something that has that many sounds to it, it's usually a workstation. This is not a workstation, but it's the next best thing, and I'll explain that as we progress a little bit later in the video. But for right now, let me just go through this. And again, I said this is weighted keys, and you cannot spell weighted without the word weight. So when you have weighted keys, you're going to have a heavier type of case or keyboard. And what they've done with this, they made it at about 30.5 pounds, which is really nothing for a weighted action. And this is using Yamaha's GHS, or graded hammer system. And basically, it's their entry level key bed. And for an entry level key bed, oh my God, it feels so good. If you take anything else in this price range, $999 US, and try to find a key bed that does so much and feels this good, that's pretty hard to do. Now, maybe with Kawai, and I bring that up specifically because Yamaha and Kawai are the only two that basically make acoustic concert grand pianos. They've both been doing that for a long time. Yamaha's been doing it over 100 years, so it's no surprise that even with an entry level keyboard, it feels so good. Now, to move on, let's go ahead and cover the basics over here. Everything in the case is plastic. That helps make it a little bit lighter. Now, let's go through the ins and outs over here on the back panel. So, starting from left to right, your left to my right, basically, you have the 12 volts DC input that plugs into your AC mains. It's a little wall wart, so, but you're all set with that. Next to that, you got the power switch for on and off, self-explanatory. You've got the legacy 5-pin DIN MIDI in and MIDI out, which makes it perfect to connect to another MIDI device or another MIDI keyboard without having to have a computer in the way. Very cool. Then you've got your USB A and B connectors. B is more of the boxy type connector, and A is a connector where you can put a thumb drive or a USB flash drive into it so you can save your own stuff or read from it without going through a computer. Now, you can hook up the B directly to your computer so you have basically audio and MIDI on the same cable. Very cool. Then you've got a couple of pedal switches or pedal jacks. So the pedal jacks, you can have a sustain pedal, and next to that you have a foot controller, which can be an expression pedal to use for stuff like volume or wah-wah or any number of other things, which is pretty cool. In this price range, you don't usually find, legacy MIDI and more than just a sustain pedal jack. So they got that covered over there. Then you've got your aux input. It's a stereo input. It's a 1/8 inch input. So things like an MP3 player or an iOS device or your smartphone, whatever, can plug into there. And you've got your line outputs, left/mono and right standard 1/4 inch jacks, and your stereo headphone jacks. So that's it for the back panel. And basically, this keyboard, you heard the piano at the beginning, and that sounds really nice. I love that piano. All right, now the front panel over here, you got pitch bend and modulation wheels. You got your overall instrument volume, and then you've got 4 knobs over here that serve multiple purposes. Now, if you look over here, you'll see 3 different rows, and each row has its own set of functions. The first row is cutoff, resonance, chorus, and reverb. That's what these 4 things will do right now while that green LED is on that row. Put that LED to the next row, and now these 4 knobs control something else. They control attack, decay, sustain, and release. Basically, it's your envelope, and it controls things like how this keyboard reacts over time once you press a note. And you can see that the screen also changes to reflect what these buttons or these knobs are doing. Okay. Press it again, and now it's a volume control over here, pan control left and right over here, and the next 2 are assignable. You can make them do whatever you want them to do. All right. So let's go back and leave it for the first row. And you'll see also in gray over here, A, B, C, D. We're going to get to the gray areas in a couple of minutes. But right now, let's go through the rest of these. Over here, you'll see transpose right on the keyboard, which is really cool. Because if you're playing something right here, and you have a singer with you, and you know your song in C, and she knows her song in D, well, that's not going to work. But if you go ahead and hit the transpose, so you can change it to whatever key you want. And basically, without even thinking, you keep playing it in C, she keeps singing in D, but it comes out in D because you've transposed it up to D. And it's really good that that's right here on the front panel. Some keyboards have that buried in some kind of a menu or sub-menu selection, and that's really frustrating. But right here, and you can do the same thing with octave. You can have an octave shift up and down. This is more for like the MX49 or 61 that doesn't have the full 88 keys. Okay, we're going to skip the DAW remote for now. We're going to move on. File and utility. File, basically, you can get to all the files on your USB thumb drive, and so on and so forth. And utility, that's where everything happens over here. You have a couple of different categories. You have utility, you have Midi, you have controller, and you have remote. So let's go back to general. General, once I hit enter, I can control things like master volume, note shift, tuning, direct monitor on or off, DAW level, wave volume, octave, transpose, velocity curve, fixed velocity, LCD contrast, knob function display switch, knob display time, startup, auto off, and that's it for that category. All right, so if I go to the next category, let's hit exit from utility. Next category is Midi. and I can control things like if I want my MIDI input and output to be controlled by USB or via the legacy MIDI jacks. Local control on and off, that controls whether the key bed is on or off for controlling sounds here. Bank select, program change, control reset, MIDI sync, clock out, sequence control, basic channel, device number, receive bulk, bulk interval. And let's go to the next category, controller. So let's select that, and here's what you can control. The pedals, the FC3 half damper, on or off. Now, all these FC, these are Yamaha's controllers, like pedals and things like that. You don't have to use Yamaha's, but this is set up to use Yamaha's, like the sustain pedal, and so on and so forth. Here's the different selections that you have over here. You even have a breath controller control. Okay. Now, what I was saying here, you don't have to use Yamaha. In fact, for a sustain pedal, I am using a Pro line, which is basically a switch, an on-off switch. And I'm using this for my sustain right now. And this doesn't work on every single keyboard the way it is, so it comes with a switch right here, a polarity switch. So if it doesn't work off the bat, you just move the switch to the other position and it will work. It's like $29.95 super pedal. Also, for expression, I mean, expression pedals can get expensive, and I'm using a Pro line expression pedal here, also $29.95. It works just great with this, with no other modifications. And the last thing is remote. I'm not going to get into that at the moment. So everything on this board is performance-based. So you have 128 different performances is what they like to call it. And a performance is basically nothing more than if you set everything up the way you want it, what instruments you want, what effects you want, what controls you want, everything the way you like it, you save it as a performance. And the very first performance that comes up when you turn this on is basically, we'll hit select, and it's called MX category. I'm going to turn that off for now. But basically, there's two instruments here, or two parts, I should say, concert grand and what they call ambient pizza. And if you look at this triangle here, it shows that the concert grand has the focus right now. So and as I turn the jog wheel button, I'm going through the piano category. Mellow grand, Glasgow, romantic piano, mono grand, which is really good to cut through a mix if you're playing with a band. Here's a concert grand piano too. And there's a lot more rock piano. Honky tonk. Ballad key. Well, I'm not going to go through all the pianos and everything, but basically you get the idea. And as long as I have that top line as the focus, I can choose any of its over 1,100 different sounds or instruments or voices or patches, whatever you want to call them. They mean the same thing. So right now I am in the piano category, and I just showed you a few of those. But let's go to the next category, which is keyboard. And there's a whole bunch of different instruments in each one of these categories. In fact, when you have 1100, that's a lot. So they broke that up into 16 different categories. Basically, piano, keyboard, organ, guitar, bass, strings, brass, sax, woodwind, synth lead, pad, choir, synth, comp, chromatic percussion, drum percussion, sound effects, which is really cool, musical effects, and ethnic. So right now I'm in the keyboard category. To explore all the different sounds in here, all I need to do is move this jog wheel just a notch, and I go to the next sound. I can also move these increment decrement buttons. So increment will move me one more up. Decrement will move me back to the previous. Or I can keep pressing the category button to keep incrementing to the next instrument in that category. So let me go through some of these categories. I wrote down some of the things that I found kind of interesting. I guess it's going to be random here. So let's start with the organ. And if I go to a church organ, well, anyway, you get the idea, and that sounds so good. In fact, all of the samples that are built into here just sounds good, and it should, because it's all built on the Motif sound engine. So for basically less than $1,000, $999 US, you get the Motif sound engine built into this. How cool is that? Again, I am so blown away with $999 and being able to do what this is able to do. And I haven't even shown you what it's able to do yet, just barely scratching the surface. So let's get on to some of the other songs over here. Let's go to a guitar over here. And let's see, I liked number 5. That's really nice. Love the way that sounds. All right, and let's go to another one. So anyway, you probably recognize that one too. Let's try. Let's go to the bass sounds. Here's a big cabinet. I just love the way this sounds. It's big, all right. I love that big bass cabinet. I could do something with that. And as you play with some of these songs, you might get inspired. So that could definitely inspire me to play something or make up something. The creativity involved in this board is just phenomenal. So let's try something else. Let's try the strings. And notice that as I hold a string, you hear that vibrato. And some of these, they're velocity sensitive. So if I hit them soft or harder, you get two different effects from the same instrument. And in this one, particular one, when you hold it, you get that vibrato. Really cool. Well, let's try some brass over here. Pretty nice. And let's try a synth lead over here. If I go to, oh, this is really cool. Right here, it's called Lucky. You'll see why in a minute if you remember. But basically, I've not found another keyboard. Well, it's very rare that you'll find a keyboard that has this particular patch in it. That was from Emerson, Lake and Palmer's Lucky Man. And it's hard to find a board that has that patch in it. This has it. So I'm so lucky to have found this board because I absolutely love that patch. And I can't tell you how many other boards I've had. I wanted to be able to do this, just could not. All right. And in the same category, let's try something else. This is not quite accurate, but I didn't spend the time looking for the perfect match. So let's try this. So you might recognize that too. And let's try going to a pad. And you can do that same song with a lot of different things. I just happened to try it with this and I like that particular patch. Let's go to the synth section over here. Maybe you'll recognize this one. And here's a cool one right here. If we go to the sound effects, and it was patch 12. You might recognize that from the THX sound that you hear in movie theaters, or that you used to hear when they introduced that they were using THX technology. And let's try one more thing. Let's go back to keyboards. And let's go to a harpsichord. Might recognize that from the Beatles. Anyway, there's so many different things. I can't possibly go through all of it right now. But let me go ahead and do this little trick right here. If I hold Shift and press Select, it's a quick reset, back to the Power On Performance number 1. Now, what you're seeing with these performances, you're seeing two things here. Over here, Concert Grand and what they call Ambient Pizza. Now, if I go and put the focus on the Ambient Pizza, so everything I do at this point is going to affect this ambient pizza sound. So if I'm going to go ahead and play with Cutoff or Resonance or Chorus or Reverb, that's more suited for piano actually. Or I can go ahead and, again, go to the next row and change its envelope with the attack, decay, sustain, release. Or go to the next row and affect its volume. Again, this is volume just for that instrument. So when I'm playing both together in a layer, let's say I put on a layer, now I got both piano and ambient pizza. ambient pizza is a little bit lower than the piano, and if I want to make it a little bit louder, I basically move this knob function to where I see volume. Okay, and since we can see the controller values here, and since the focus is on that ambient pizza, the volume is going to affect that and that alone. So that's pretty cool too. And again, I'm barely scratching the surface on all this stuff. All right, now if I want to put the focus back onto piano, and I want that a little bit louder, and you can hear that ambient pizza in the background. And if I want more reverb, or less, and I can control what type of reverbs, like plate, hall, things like that, stadium. All right, so what you're seeing here, you're seeing two things, and I just showed you how to layer these things. And let me just change this ambient pizza. I want to go to a bass, an acoustic bass. Give it some volume. All right, now I'm going to do a split. All right, now I've got concert grand and acoustic bass. Seems like my split point is right here. I don't want it here, so I'm going to hold down the split and put it where I want it. See how that changed my split point? All right. Now, a lot of times people get confused and they already chose something for each, for the lower and the right, and they got it reversed. Well, there's a quick way to change that. So let's say I got it reversed and I really wanted the piano on the lower and the bass on the upper. I don't know why, but just for purposes of this example, I can go ahead and hit my shift key and hit split, and look how it inverts it. Now I've got acoustic bass on the top and piano on the bottom. Now I don't want that, but just to show you how easy it is to switch the two. So that's pretty cool function right there. Now getting back to performances, there's 128 different performances built in. And you can modify them, you can change them, you can go ahead and save your own. So when you choose a performance, let's just choose some random ones by hitting select, and then we can use the jog wheel to choose, and it'll show you right here. All right, let's see what we landed on. See how I can modify that? So there's so many things I can do with that. And if I'm not happy with that tempo, I can go ahead and hit tempo, and I can change it right here. Sort of changes the whole song. Let's try a different one at random. All right, so there's a lot of stuff that's built in over here. And let me just go back to the original state so I have my piano back. All right, now a lot of people may not like the way this keypad feels or the way the action is right off the bat, but that's easily correctable. You can change this to make it feel the way you love to have it feel, whether it's a light touch or a hard touch or normal, meaning the way it came. Now, when you're in a performance over here, right now, I'm right back to my initial performance when it comes on, performance number 1. And I have the rhythm pattern turned on over here, so I can go ahead and press play. So there's so many different rhythm patterns that you can play around with. I'm not going to get into all of those in this particular video, but basically just know that they're there. Now let me come back to something that I said that I'd come back to in the beginning. This DAW remote, which is in silver or gray, when you press that, look how everything changes on both displays, because no longer are you using the built-in stuff here. You are now controlling your DAW. This actually comes with Cubase Ai, and they give you a registration number and all that kind of stuff. You just download it to your computer, and now you have full use of Cubase Ai, and this controls it. Now, unlike other keyboards that are workstations, which cost 3 and 4 times the price, like Chord Chronos or Yamaha Genos, basically, those workstation keyboards have a lot of stuff built in, but you don't have quite the control you have when you're using a DAW on your computer. Yamaha knows this, so rather than building it into the keyboard, they created an interface on your keyboard to control the DAW that's playing, that's running on your computer. How cool is that? So when you press DAW remote, all of these silver or gray indications over here are now buttons to control, or knobs, Cubase Ai or any other DAW program that you might be running. So basically, over here on the A, B, C, D, you can program these knobs to be whatever you want. Stop and play, control stop and play on your DAW. You can start it, you can stop it, and if you go over here, you've got some popular functions on the Cubase Ai that you can control. So for your AI knob, which is this right here, that becomes your knob rather than going to your mouse or whatever you go to control everything else on there. You can set it up as a jog wheel. You can lock it. You can add an instrument track. You can open a VST window. You can edit a channel set. And you have automation where you can set it for read and write and then do whatever you have to do and delete. So these are the most popular functions on Cubase Ai, and again, you can set this up to work on other DAW controller DAW programs as well. So this is one of the coolest things. Now, this board comes with the ability to run 3 other programs that you would download. Basically, number 1, Cubase Ai, which is a DAW, and it's a really good one, just like I mentioned. So that's freebie number 1. Number 2, if you're using an iOS device, you can download FM Synthesis by Yamaha and use that to get even more sounds over here from your keyboard. And number 3, this is a third-party download. This is called Vicryl Mx. And with Vicryl Mx, you can program your computer to set up and modify performances very quickly and easily. Now, what I forgot to mention about performances over here, let's go back, shift, select, so I get a quick reset. You see the initial one has two different instruments over here. So if I choose another performance over here, let's just anything random. Okay, that'll work. Now, when you go to the initial one, you'll notice that it's always been two parts. Basically, you had that piano and that ambient pizza. There's actually 16 parts, or up to 16 parts per performance. And here's how you get to them. In terms of this particular performance, at night, all right, I go to part select over here. And now I see 1 through 16. Number 1 is this BPF sweep. Okay. If I go to the next one, number 2, that's this Ibiza, whatever that is. And if I go to the next one, number 3, huge lead. And number 4, wide. Number 5, number 6, and so on. So I'm not going to go through all of these, but just know that it's multi-timbral. You can have 16 parts per performance, and it's all controlled by your DAW. So when you're running your DAW on your computer, you have complete control of up to 16 different tracks. How cool is that? So I am so impressed with this instrument for $999 US. This does so much more than almost any other instrument I can think of in the same price range. And it gives you a great feel to the keys as well. So I don't think I can endorse this enough, but it definitely has my endorsement. Piano Man Chuck, peace out. Thanks for watching.